Hello there, you're now with me, Douglas Elliott for TVS News at 5. Now let's begin with our top story. Malaysia has been singled out by conservationists as a major transit point for illegal trafficking of endangered wildlife to other ASEAN countries, following the 80 million ringgit worth of traffic wildlife contraband seizure made at the west port of Selangor on July 10th, the largest such seizure on record to date.
Yang ini adalah terbesar, mana gading gajah ni kita anggaran nilai dia gading gajah campur tulang harimau, campur tengkorak harimau, campur sumbu badak, tenggiling dan lain-lain tulang tu kita lah anggarkan 80 juta. Yes. Bangsaan mendapati gading gajah kita dapat lebih kurang 6,000 kilo. Kemudian kita dapati badak sumbu, tanduk badak sumbu 29 kilo dan sisik ini sebanyak 14 kilo. Tengkorak dan tulang haiwan dianggarkan seberat 300 kilo.
Zazuli said custom officials discovered the contraband inside 3 shipping containers deemed high risk at the west port of Selangor. The containers are believed to have arrived from Africa.
Pasukan operasi telah dapat memantau perkiraan kapal yang membawa 3 kontena bersiko yang dipercayai berasal dari Afrika. Tindakan pemeriksaan saringan menggunakan mesin mengimbas mendapati sebuah kontena disyaki membawa barang larangan. Pemeriksaan fizikal dilakukan ke atas kontena dan didapati ia membawa gading gajah, tanduk badak sumbu, sisik tenggiling, taring harimau, tanduk haiwan dan tengkorak serta tulang haiwan yang disorok di belakang timbunan kayu bergaji.
The Singapore Ministry of Education is eager and prepared to collaborate with Sarawak's Ministry of Education, Innovation and Talent Development in order to improve educational quality and nurture science, technology, engineering and math or STEM talents in Sarawak. These collaborations were discussed over a dinner hosted by Singapore's Minister for Education Chan Cheng Sing for Sarawak's Minister for Education, Innovation and Talent Development, Datuk Roland Sagahui, during his working visit to Singapore.
The programs will cover students' exchanges, teachers' competency development programs, experience sharing visits by Singapore teachers to Sarawak, and programs to nurture interests and talents in STEM. Earlier in the day, the Sarawak delegation also paid a courtesy call on the representatives from the Biomedical Research Council BMRC and Bioprocessing Technology Institute BTI, which come under the purview of the Agency for Science, Technology and Research Singapore, also known as ASTAR. The team from A-STAR were also given an introduction to the Sarawak Research and Development Council by its General Manager, Dr. Peter Mori Nisom. The meeting resulted in potential research collaboration between Singapore research institutes, particularly in areas of natural products development from Sarawak's biological resources for food, flavors, therapeutics, and medicinal properties.
Welcome back. Malaysia in recent weeks recorded an increase in COVID-19 cases, with over 3,000 new COVID-19 infections reported on Sunday. Elsewhere around the world, cities like Shanghai and Macau are resorting to another lockdown to curb the COVID-19 virus. Despite assurances by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob last week that there won't be another economic shutdown, many fear Malaysia will follow suit. Joining us this evening is former Executive Director of the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research, Professor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Zakaria Abdul Rashid. Thank you so much for joining us today, Doctor. Now, do you foresee another shutdown in economic activities in Malaysia?
Okay, thank you very much from you. Thank you very much to you that giving me opportunity to talk about this interesting and important matters. I think the current situation is very much different from what we had before. I personally think that I don't think there will be any lockdown again in the future. First, for the reason is that last time when the lockdown was introduced, it is to halt the spread of COVID-19, and but the economic impact of the lockdown is very devastating. I would say a catastrophe impact on the economic. IMF described that as a great slowdown or great economic downturn at the global scale. So if you mention about these two regions, Macau and China, particularly Shanghai, that is the choice of an individual country. But I don't think Malaysia will undertake a lockdown again unless the pandemic reoccur at the global scale.
Right. It has certainly been a tough year during the pandemic, and subsequent movement control orders for many has had drastic effects on our economy. The lockdowns hit businesses deemed non-essential and those with limited remote work capabilities the hardest. Now, relating to that, Professor, can we afford another lockdown?
The question of whether we can afford to have another lockdown or not is a question of choice, you know. But if we have to, then we've got to do it because this is the choice between life and livelihood, and I think we have to take care of our life first before we talking about livelihood. But both are important. So if there is a need if the pandemic reoccur at a global scale, then all the country will have to undertake lockdown. All the country in the world as before, as in the 2020. So we have to follow. We have to follow suit. Whether we can afford or not, I think is a different questions. But when we need to do that, then we have to do that, no matter at what cost. So if there is a great economic impact on us if we practice another lockdown, then we have to remember that it's not only our country, then the whole world will be affected. But right now, if you want to we want to talk a little bit more about that, I think our economic condition, of course, first we want to talk about our health conditions. I think just now I said if there is a need to do that, then we have to do it, because that is a question of life. We have to save our life first before anything else.
And as we are aware, the government is taking important short-term and long-term actions to help sustain the vitality of the economic recovery. Now, while considered necessary for reducing the risk of spreading COVID-19, the confinement measures are putting unprecedented pressure on local markets and economies. Lastly, Doctor, how long do you foresee the country recovering from the economic impact?
Inflation is a major problem to the people in the world. So we are experiencing about 2.5, 2.8% inflation, but other countries, especially the Western countries, nearly 10%, 9.8, 9.5%. And I think Ismail Sabri Yaakob, our Honorable Prime Minister, have said, actually that 2.8% is not the real picture of our inflationary pressure in this country. You know why? Because the government now contain inflationary phenomenon by introducing a lot of intervention by the government in terms of giving subsidy. Because subsidies, 77 billion for this year, 2022, will not last much any longer, because from year to year we always break our historical record of giving subsidy. That means giving subsidy is not a sustainable practice, in any country in the world. So that means hopefully that's what we hope. Maybe after perhaps 1 or 2 years, things will come back to normal, and we have to do away with the subsidies, and we will now start building up our capacity, rebuilding our capacity of the economy, so that our economy will be able to function normally, or can be more competitive in the global world.
Right. Thank you again for joining us today, Dr. Zakaria. That's all the time we have for TVS News at 5. I'm Douglas Elliott. Thank you for watching.